listening to Am I The Bolcast, the only Magic the Gathering podcast that exists ever, period. I'm your host, Mike Carrozza, probably better known as Mark Carbanza. You might know me from my column over at commandersherald.com called Am I The Bolas? Gee, I wonder why this podcast is what I'm hosting. Maybe it has something to do with that column of mine that I wrote. I am joined, as always, in the very same studio, technically the same room, but in a different country, all together, joined by Games Freak SA. You know him, you love him, Michael Solani of How They Brew It. Hiya.
I'm glad to be here, Mike. Let's talk about very important things in the structure of the universe.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you have in mind?
Card games? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. If you think I'm not going to pivot this podcast away from whatever we want to whatever we want.
We could, hold on. Wait. Are you telling me that I'm capable of talking about whatever I want on this podcast?
Within reason. Anyway, our producer's also here. Our producer / super genius, Morgan Sanchez. Hi, Morgan.
Howdy, Mark. Solani and I are extra fresh today because we just got our first 10-degree day and are officially defrosted since our negative 10-degree weather on Friday. I successfully blowtorched our switchboards so people are able to finally call in again. And we're just waiting. We're just waiting for somebody to get on the line.
Hey, well, that's fun. Hold on a second. I just got to Google something. 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
Are you converting Celsius to Fahrenheit?
No, quite the opposite, because you guys are the Americans, and I need to understand what this is. Minus 12? Oh, my God. That's it? You okay. Well, that's okay.
Hold on. That's it?
That's it? No, as in, like, that's how, you're, like, saying it's defrosted. I'm like, that's not defrosting. That's...
Oh, no, I thought you were using your very Canadian roots to make fun of us for not being able to withstand cold weather.
I mean, I am to an extent. Right now, it's minus 8, so you guys have it 4 degrees colder than us.
We're warm.
Yeah, we win. Finally. Just like the War of 1812.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I don't know if this counts as a win. It does have a feels like indicator of minus 15, so we win by 3 degrees, I think. But either way, yeah, no, brutal. Don't care for that one bit. And I know that you guys are in Chicago, but does our audience know you're in Chicago? Well, they do now. Hey, guys, you're in Chicago. Do you know what else is going to be in Chicago in the coming 10 days?
I'm just mad I got doxxed on my own podcast.
Well, you guys talk about being in the same place all the time. What am I supposed to say? No, you don't live there?
You're supposed to make up a place. Like Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, Chicago.
No, that's not how locations work.
Same state, different country.
Okay, but seriously, are we not saying that you're in Chicago? You mentioned it on another episode.
Oh my God. Just keep going. They all know I'm in Chicago. I keep telling people on my Discord I'm in Chicago. I keep saying Chicago-related things.
Chicago's a big city. I didn't say where. It's not like I said 2300 Hamlet.
The CTA and bad coffee places.
I don't know what those are, but I support you and whatever you're into. I don't know what that means, but I love you and I want you to be happy. Okay?
That makes one of us.
Dork. What's the matter with you? You want you to be happy.
I listened to your later interviews and you definitely said some things that needed to be cut out.
Oh, for sure I've said so. And then you know what I do immediately after? I go, hey, Ken, cut that out, please. And then Ken inserts the sound of a roaring chainsaw over it instead of a bleep or cutting it out. Oh, God. Oh, God. Imagine he did that. That'd be the worst. Except, would it be so bad right now?
And whatever you do not replace that sound with anything.
We make Ken work too hard.
I disagree. We don't make Ken work hard enough.
Okay, that's not fair. I'm telling you, we do. I do anyway with the callers. That
Ken,
happen,
drop
I
the
think.
beat.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're talking about Chicago because let me tell you, this is what day is it today? It's the 13th, February 13th.
Yep.
And guess what happens in exactly 10 days? MagicCon Chicago, baby. That's right.
Oh, I was gonna guess the Rapture.
Why? Why were you gonna guess the Rapture?
It's gotta come sometime.
You know what? Fair. I just have not been thinking about it. It is not on my mind. Well, it's not the Rapture. Instead, more people are gonna be near you than not near you. Is that what? I don't know what the Rapture is. Does the Rapture is like people hide and seek? The Rapture's people go away?
It's people hide and don't come
No,
back.
Hold on. Finish that thought, Mike. Explain what you think the Rapture is.
I'm putting it lightly. They go bye-bye. They go hide and seek. They buy a farm and they go live on the farm.
They're not my pet rabbit Flopsy, Mike.
Flopsy's a terrible name.
That's scary, actually. That's like
Yeah.
that is like a legendary creature that is black.
Flopsy?
Okay.
Flopsy the necromantic hare or something. Like that's questionable.
What are you guys talking about? Am I being gaslit right
We're
now?
going to Bloomborough.
It's a great name for a buddy.
I don't like it whatsoever. It
Nope.
makes me think that he can't stand right. Makes me think he flops over and he's not okay.
He's got floppy ears, you absolute imbecile.
Oh, I'm supposed to know that bunnies have ears? What do you think this is? What, we're on an educational podcast where people are learning things? I don't think so.
No, this is a podcast where we judge people. And I'm judging you harshly now for your opinions.
Good, because you can judge me in person. I'm going to be in Chicago. I'm coming to your hometown. I'm coming to your city to be with you and all the friends.
Desperately try to bring it around.
Yes, I'm trying to keep the podcast on track. It's our one thing we're supposed to be doing right now. What is this?
You said I could talk about anything I wanted, Mike. Anything
And you
I
immediately
wanted.
went to your pet rabbit that was raptured.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Of all the things.
Solani, what's that say about you? What's that say about you? And you know what, Morgan? High five.
I don't know, but it says a hell of a lot about my rabbit.
Anyway.
He was a good man.
So I'm going to be in Chicago for the con happening the 23rd to the 25th. But guess what? I'm coming a week early. I'm going to be there from the 17th to the 25th. And I'm doing comedy while I'm out there. What's that? Yeah. I'm doing shows at the Lincoln Lodge on Friday and Saturday, the 23rd, 24th. I'm trying to see if I can get up on some other shows. You might want to go watch Ian Carmel on the 18th. But you should also check out Johnny Pemberton on the 17th. Am I plugging friends? Yes. Anyway, I'm going to be at the convention in Chicago, and I'm going to get to see you guys in person. We're going to get to hang out and play a bunch of games. Morgan's going to learn how to play Commander all over again. And we're going to play some games with anybody who wants to while we're at the convention. So please, come say hi. If you listen to the podcast, please let us know. I want to know that you guys are real.
We'll only play against people who aren't the Bolas, though. Which famous people did we actually say were the Bolas?
I don't know. Well, I know how many that you've said is the Bolas. You have a track record of saying most of them.
Do you have a count? Oh my god.
Honestly, we should start doing that. I feel like we should. That feels like something we should be doing. We should definitely either get to that ourselves, or maybe we have a very gung-ho listener who would like to do that for us. Are we at that level of podcast where we have people doing stuff for us? I don't think so. Either way, I'll probably put together a list and then follow it through because we're only a handful of episodes in. Oh boy. I wonder who is on the line or calling soon.
Well, apparently there's this guy. I just got off the line. He's still on hold, but he's been calling since 4 a.m. And he says that
4 a.m.
says that he won something. I thought that blinking light was just the defrost on the Switch. I thought it was just glitching, but apparently
You weren't distracted by the saffron olive board, right?
That one came out first. All right, so I had to look. I had to double check. I had to make sure that he wasn't on there waiting.
Wait a minute.
So it's this guy.
You had to take out the saffron olive board? Are you saying we can't do that joke anymore?
No.
I'm saying we can't.
It defrosted first, so that took some priority there.
Okay, look,
I'm gonna
say this. Saffron Olive, you're welcome to call anytime, but you're gonna have to use a regular line like the rest of us, okay? When I want to call into this podcast, I call in and I wait since 3 a.m. Thank you very much to finally get on at 8 p.m. So, our caller, let's get to you right now. Let's check it out.
Am I the bolas? 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 Am I the bolas?
Oh boy, the Am I the Bolcast lines are ringing, and who do we got on the line? Caller, you're on with Mark Carbanza.
Hi. Can you hear me? Did I make it through? Hi.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Great, because I've been trying to call since 4 this morning, and it just seems to. I keep getting the switchboard, and they keep sending me away. Am I the third caller?
You are hey, look at it. You're the third caller.
Great. What do I win?
A conversation with a pal.
Whoa!
Welcome to the show. Who am I speaking with?
Hi. This is Shivam Bhatt. I'm on the Commander Advisory Group and host of Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic and some other things. I'm calling in because the other day I was called a right royal bolus, and I need to know if I was really being the bolus or not.
Oh boy, let's dive right in. Tell me about the story. Hit me with what happened.
A friend of mine invited me onto their stream to play some Magic, and I had a deck that I just finished building. I hadn't had any chances to do any reps with it. It was only like a hypothetical kind of idea of a deck, and it was the first time playing colors I'd never done before. So it was like red, blue, super Dirtletron, whatever. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. This is my friend's stream. They can edit it if it's a problem. And my turn, it turned out, took like, so this deck has this tendency of popping off, of casting a bunch of spells and turning them into bigger things, rolling off the top and just rolling into 1,000,001 kind of just triggers that are all based off of casting instants and sorceries. Cause I was like, you know what would be nice in a deck? If I had every single good red and blue card that's ever been printed, and they all care about casting things like Ponder and Preordained and then turning them into crazy mega things. And when you cast one, your Phoenix goes off and your other, what's that card from Ixalan that makes you like flip over the top and get bigger things? And all these like tokens are being generated. And I was like, great, it's awesome. And my turn took 45 minutes and didn't win the game.
45 minutes?
Because there was a lot of triggers and I didn't know them all, and I was missing triggers left and right. I knew it was a stream. I wanted to make sure I was properly representing myself. And I had a gigantic army, and I was about to go and do an alpha strike, and the other player had an indestructible wall, and I had no trample or evasion or blasphemous act because I forgot that blasphemous act goes in red-blue decks. So, but then I kind of total dirtled out and lost. After like an hour of stream. Am I the bad guy?
I mean, this is a tough one. I need a little bit more context. So you said, Shivam Bhatt, of course, I've heard of you and I've been a fan. So it's quite the honor. Thank you for joining us. I know you're no stranger to the color red, but I have not known you to play much blue.
Red and blue are in combination my least favorite way to play Magic. Right? Like, because it's mainly spells based. It's a thing that even since I started playing 1,000,000 years ago, it's just not a thing that I'm into. I want creatures to get on the table. And Nira was printed in Baldur's Gate. Nira, the commander that says when you cast a spell, instead of casting a spell, you put that spell on the bottom and you can flip over the top, and whatever non-land you get, you can then use. So my deck is full of things like scroll racks and deck manipulation stuff like, preordained ponders, whatever.
Right.
And top,
of course.
Yeah, and then like there's a whole bunch of like other enchantments and stuff that do that exact kind of effect. And the idea is, I turn my Ponder into an Ancient Silver Dragon, or I turn my Ponder into like an Inferno, or whatever the case may be, some gigantic, I don't know, Ulamog. And so it's a really, really fun and really cool deck. And the first time I had built it, I had gone on Elder Dragon Hijinks, which is a lovely EDH gameplay run by my friends Olivia Gober-Hicks and Alias V. And they were like, sure, you just need a deck, whatever. And I'm like, great, I will bring this deck. I've never tried it before. And it turns out that when you have every card in the universe that cares about casting triggers, and you cast a spell and suddenly 350 things happen, and you're like, oh, I think I got 38 Thopters, 100 soldiers, and also turned you into a flower.
It's a lot.
But I didn't have any cards that actually dealt with board states that I couldn't handle.
Interesting.
So there was no like Cyclonic Rift. I mean, it's red. Why would I have sweepers in red? Right.
Right. Well, the way you build red normally, I wouldn't pack too many sweepers either. If you got creatures on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. All my red directors are like dragons or warriors or soldiers or whatever. So like the idea of putting something like a blasphemous act, I don't know.
Shakes you to your core. You're just like, oh,
Yeah, it's just like, why would I? But that would be my deck I'm hurting.
my poor creatures.
Exactly. Turns out though, like you need to have abilities to actually get through.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just spinning. This deck is literally spinning its wheels. It was literally just looping itself over and over again.
The end result did produce that, I think. I'll say
It was amazing.
So I think it's so that's the kind of thing that I feel like we're cut from the same cloth, and that Izzet decks have never quite appealed to me either. I do have one Izzet deck, which is the Zephi Thunder Conductor, because I got the Strixhaven precons and I upgraded that one because I thought, well, I have the basis for one, might as well keep it around, try it out. But I've played that deck a handful of times, and every time I get to do the thing, it takes forever, and it's actually on my desk to pull apart later because it's one of those decks that like it's value, and it does a lot. And luckily, Zephi does trigger off of all this stuff to make creature tokens that you can then attack with, and like you're overwhelming the board state, or if you have a high enough mana value to your spell, you're dealing 10 damage to a random opponent, so you can close it out that way. But if you look at my cards otherwise, yeah, they're just kind of like, hey, I'm going to play this card, and now that means that this other card gets played, and now this card gets copied to copy this card, and I'm drawing more cards to card, but nothing else happens to affect the opponents.
Yeah, it turned out sometimes the deck ends up feeling like you're playing Dominion, right? Like you're just drafting and drawing cards and drawing cards and drawing cards and playing cards to let you draw cards and draw cards, and there's no actual output for your engine.
That's it. So I'll tell you, the reason that my deck has stayed together this long is because goldfishing it is fun. Without the pressure on a pod, goldfishing it has been quite fun. Because I'm like, well, it's doing a thing. Like, all these pieces are fun. I'm doing a little bit of solitaire. I do think Nira is such a cool commander, and I see why you'd be drawn to it. 2/7 without any evasion, though, makes it tough to get in anywhere.
Yeah, she's not getting in. There's no point.
No. She might as well be an enchantment.
No, that's exactly what it is. She's just an enchantment with summoning sickness, right? Like, the whole point of that card, though, like, that deck, I've now, after this experience, I went through and I changed it. I took out a bunch of cards that did nothing and replaced them with cards that do something. And it turns out that once you tinker with the deck a bit, it is incredibly, yes, it's still boom or bust. It's still got moments where it does literal jack nothing. And then times when it's just like, oops, I won. But I mean, most of the time it's like, oh, what could that card on top that I just put there with scroll rack and top be? Huh. It's the thing is, it's hella fun. It's got a lot of weird back and forthy play. But what I learned is that that deck is what taught me that if you're going to build an engine, you need to have an output. You can't just build an engine and then go nowhere with it.
Absolutely. I think you've answered your own question here.
Oh, I was completely the Bolas, dude. It was somebody else's. Yeah. Just because someone else is editing, it doesn't mean that I have to waste their life.
Yeah, I mean, editing it or not, that how can you make the experience of that more fun for the table? And this is something that's come up before on the show, is that my old play group, whenever somebody had a turn like this, or it was starting to have a turn like this, we'd say, you know what, put your hand down and let's figure it out together. Let's work out, like, if you're going to do a puzzle at the table, let's all do the puzzle, right?
Right.
And I think that makes it a little bit interesting. But when you're doing it on a stream and you're trying to represent the game as best as you can, and it's for views and stuff.
Well, there were a couple of cards specifically that just made this heinous. Namely, there was a thing called Sunbird's Invocation from
beautiful.
From Ixalan, right? Where you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X where it's the mana value of the spell, and then you can cast a spell with mana value X or less from the card that you reveal without paying their mana cost, put it under. So the whole point is there are so many different things that were triggering off of casting a spell in Nira that Sunbird's Invocation was just adding a ton of bookwork for zero gain. I mean, it's cool, it's really clever, but when the whole deck is already doing the whole cascade flip into random thing, having that redundancy just slows it down a lot.
Yeah, I'd say there's a reason that Nira is capped to trigger just once a turn.
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to have Possibility Storm in your command zone, would you? Like that.
Right. Oh God.
I shudder the thought. Truly.
Exactly that.
So here's the thing that I appreciate about this discussion is that yes, we can acknowledge you are the Bolas. I think in this story, we take it to a vote afterwards, but I think we won't have much to think about.
I was completely out of my. I should have played the deck at least once, but also Arcane Bombardment from New Capenna sucks.
Oh God, what a card!
It's amazing, but again, when you've got that plus
I know
freaking Invocation and Nira and everything, and you cast your first thing, and you're just like, okay, which of these? Your deck should not be a judge call every turn. Right? Like, I think that's the key I learned from that.
Ooh, cut that out and make a clip, buddy. That is, your deck shouldn't be a judge call every turn. That sounds like you're throwing down the gauntlet and challenging some people, but you're also giving a lot of different people a way to approach the game that are going to make them very happy. That is, what a succinct way, and it just rolled off the tongue and everything. Yeah. Your deck shouldn't be a judge call every turn. And I'll say Arcane Bombardment is one of those beautiful cards where you like pick it up and you're like, my God, this is for sure this is a mythic. Look at all the stuff it does. But it's one of those cards that only exists in one archetype. And which one is it? The one that's already doing too much.
Right.
So
like that's the thing. Is like all these spells were doing effectively the same thing, just enough different to be a pain in the ass. Because then you're like, I cast a spell, okay. Swarm Intelligence comes, it copies it. Now I've got like 4 triggers of Arcane Invocation and Sun. Okay, what the hell? And by the way, my third path, whatever the guy is making like a soldier for each of these. And
the third path iconoclast.
Talrand comes out and is giving you drakes, and like I'm just like my board is covered in cardboard. I have no conception of what's happening.
Don't forget, you have to stack your triggers of Archmage Emeritus to draw the card before you resolve that.
You know how many times I missed that stupid trigger because it's just like I have completely lost what direction the game is going in.
I assume you've seen this. You've played against a deck like this where the pilot has it under control. I assume you've seen that work out before.
Oh yeah,
but it's usually somebody who's like, "This is the deck that I've had for a couple of years now." And I play it every commander night.
Oh yeah, like when you look at it like a true, like somebody who's really, really mastered a deck or is like understands the inner workings of how to do this, they've got their triggers like almost alphabetically stacked or something like that. They've got these things just in a programmatic order. They know I'm going to go line these things up in XYZ order, and they're going to trigger. Boom, here's the stuff that comes out. You're dead, right? Like that's just, I can appreciate that.
I love it. It's like they show up with like extra tools or something to track all that for themselves because they've
got
realized
little tokens and little reminders and all this and that. And the other
they've
thing.
optimized.
Yeah. It's really important to do that because otherwise you're just in spinning your wheels down. And like one of the first passes of cuts I did to this after like I played that first disastrous game was going through and taking out all of the things that like double your spells or all of the things that give you like extra triggers that are just maybe not gonna do anything else special. Like playing Ulamog for free is awesome. I mean, what are you gonna do with that second Ulamog? Or I mean, like not second Ulamog, but you know what I mean. Like sometimes you just
100%.
don't need to have all these extra triggers that are actually gonna just roll you into like a counter spell by accident, and you're like, oh crap, that just sucked.
Yeah, and if the goal is to copy spells and stuff, you can downgrade. You can go from Swarm Intelligence, which copies every spell, instant or sorcery you cast, to Double Vision that does it only once a turn. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to make that deck a little bit more manageable for yourself. What I appreciate about, like, this is the fun part about the podcast, is coming to like having a chat about the story and having a chat about like a pet peeve or something, and coming to a realization or coming to a discussion about another part of the person we're chatting with. So Shivam, what I think is very fun is that you acknowledge that you were the Bolas here, but you've already also isolated and identified the ways in which you can improve and taking this on as more of a lesson. And it feels like it's not something that you had to think about really. It's kind of something that you do on your own. Like, I approach something, there's a lesson to be learned here, and I internalize that and I'll work from that part on. Do you find that that's something, that's how you approach the game or life Is that something that you would say is what you do?
I mean, that's an important part of my life, an important part of growing up and being an adult as well. Is just like, look, you've got to own your mistakes and figure out how to fix it and then do it right the next time, right? Because you can't just keep repeating the same walking into the wall over and over and over again if you want anything to get done. With this deck, it was especially doubly because I had this already preconceived notion that I don't like this kind of deck. And so I'm already looking out for things that I would hate to see other people do with these kinds of decks. And I'm like, oh no. Oh, I can see exactly where this is going because I built this like a doofus. And now it's like my favorite deck. It's one of my favorite decks to play just because it's silly, it's fun, it's not too powerful. It's exactly where I want it to be power-wise, right? But it's also completely ridiculous, right? Like it's also a really, really silly and foolish deck. The way I look at it is like not just looking at your mistakes and figuring out how to fix them, but also, have you ever seen somebody make a bonsai tree?
I have not. Like just, the basic, the trimming and stuff.
Sure. Like if you ever go on YouTube, sometimes there's people who do like these cool, like sped up videos of making a bonsai. And you look, they take this shrub that they dig up from like, I don't know, the wood somewhere, and they put it into a pot. And you look at this thing and it's just like a weedy, scraggly pile of crap. And they've got the before and after of like, this is this ultra sculpted, hyper beautiful tree. And this thing that just looks like lawn trimmings. And when you watch them like cutting into this tree and getting from point A to point B and like getting to the finished product, they're making cuts that look horrific. You're like, oh my God, you're going to kill the tree. You're cutting the thing. You're stripping the flesh off the thing. You're making these weird gouges. Oh, what are you doing? That thing was so cool looking. How could you rip that one mega branch with all the flowers off? And then you realize at the end of it, oh, that thing looks hella good. And you needed to make these insane drastic cuts in order to get to hella good, right? Do you know the artist Wayne Reynolds? He does a lot of D&D and magic artwork. He's very spiky, very kind of like, he had the Goblins Secret Lair most recently. Wayne Reynolds, I asked him like 20 years ago to draw a picture for me at Gen Con, back when these guys were just sitting around doing nothing and could do stuff like sketch in your sketchbook for a couple bucks. And I was like, can you draw the character Raceland from Dragonlance? And he's like, sure, I can do that, whatever. And he starts and he draws this like pen outline, and it's like beautiful. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest sketch I've ever gotten in my life. And then he starts coloring it in, shading. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Then he takes a big, thick, black permanent marker and just starts and just like scrawling over it. I'm like, no, what are you doing? And he's like, patience. And I waited and I watched. And at the end, I saw that what he had been doing with his big, thick marker that looked like somebody would use to tag on the side of a building or something was actually just finishing the picture and making this incredible like highlights and shadows and stuff that I had no idea were even there, but because he had a vision and knew what he was doing when he was starting to hack, ended up just looking insane. But in the process, it looked completely ridiculous. And it was also just like, it also looked like he was just deliberately messing the thing up.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do when you're looking at like, and the lesson I took from the Nira deck was that when you're making cuts to your deck, you can't be too precious. You can't be too attached to it. You've got to be able to make these gigantic, jagged, take like a package of 15 cards and just slice it out. Because at the end of the day, it's going to look like a bonsai tree and you're going to have this incredible, perfect deck. But you, on the path there, it's going to look like you're just a slaughterhouse, man.
Oh my God. First of all, love the bonsai tree analogy. This is such a great way to look at it. I'm terrible at cutting cards to the point where, I mean, I'll have a list on Moxfield and then just a new set comes out and I'm like, well, I'm back up to 160. Well, all right, let's see if I can bring it down. And then I get down to 115 and I'm like, I'm almost there. And then another set comes out by then. And this was even before we had as many sets as we have now.
Oh God. This is why I only update my decks once a year, man. I can't do it otherwise.
You know what? That's a lot of patience to wait for it. I see the card and I'm like, let me put them in.
Yeah.
Put them in. I know. Hey, you know what? You're doing right by you because it does drive me crazy a little bit.
I can't because it's just, the worst feeling in the world in Commander is when when a new set comes out and you're adding cards and you put a card in the cut pile, that's a card you added like a set or two ago that's never seen play.
Exactly. I agree with that. That is so such a terrible feeling.
And I was just like, you know what, man? If I'm going to go through all the effort to put the damn thing in the deck, it deserves once to hit a table before I take it out. And that's why I
Yeah.
forced myself back to like once a quarter, you get to look at your decks and see if there's stuff to add. Once a year, slow down because you need to, because otherwise,
know
what are we
what?
doing if we're just moving cards in and out for no reason?
I can live with once a quarter. I think that's, you know what, you've talked me into it. I think I'm gonna have to start being a little bit more, being kind by being a little bit more strict with myself. I think it might be best to approach it that way. I appreciate the bonsai tree analogy. I love the Wayne Reynolds story. I definitely have to get better at the cutting. I do think that the image that came to mind when you were talking about it was, you ever seen those painters who are painting something and you're like, what are you doing? What's happening over here? It looks awful. And then they flip it upside down and you're like, oh my God, it's Barack Obama.
What happened? Where did that? Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, you can't see what the finished product is going to look like while you're in the path of making it.
Right.
Like, unless you've got a picture kind of what it is. But also, like, let's be real, I suck at cutting my deck. Everybody sucks at cutting their decks. I tend to hand it to my friends and say, like, these
I
three...
do the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to.
I'm like, don't cut these 3 cards, but otherwise just start like weed whackering. And then I've learned from that artwork. Also, I guess from playing a lot of sealed and draft, where you're like, look, you gotta like, you can draft a pile of the best cards on the planet, but you're playing 40 of them. So
I'm way less precious then. Absolutely. In sealed and draft, it's so much easier to just be like, these are the core, and you know, I'm not forced into color identity, so I get to pick from everything. Just pick the best and make it work. You know,
right.
Plus, there's less personality, let's say, to a sealed or limited deck.
Yeah, commander decks, every card is hand-picked, hand-chosen, and is like your beloved baby that you've been waiting 12 years for a commander to show. Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, of course you know.
But
I think it must be. Yeah, but it must be. Speaking of every card is a baby, or it's every card is somebody's favorite, or something like that. You must get a lot of people messaging you, being on the CAG and being like, "Oh, this card, please unban it," or you know, this card deserves a banning, because they are also not seeing the bonsai tree. You know what I mean?
Yes, I mean that's a lot of it,
God.
right? Like not to be a total douche about it, but like sometimes you are one branch on this tree, and your branch might have some like thorns on it, some prickles and stuff, and it's like, man, you got to cut this whole stuff out. It's ruining my experience. I'm like, well, your table is having a problem. I agree. However, the tree is healthy and is doing really, really good, and taking that one chunk out might destabilize the whole tree, or vice versa. Why did you ban this card? It was totally perfect in my pond. I'm like, yeah, in your group of people, it was amazing. For the greater group of people, it was choking the life out of this plant, right? Like,
right.
We have to make decisions from 50,000 like feet up that sometimes will not make sense to you at the deep local level, but are pruning the tree for the health of the tree, right? Like, and it's like taking a big ass big ass branch off is more like when you have to cut something like Golos. Like Golos was like the largest percentage of the format, the best commander for anything you want to do.
Oh yeah,
by a lot. One of my favorite cards of all time. But it was also incredibly detrimental to Commander as a whole. It's like, look,
it was
that
everywhere.
vine, that flowering vine is so gorgeous, and it makes the most beautiful flowers and has a wonderful scent. But it's also choking the life out of the pine tree, and we are the pine tree, so we need to take that flowering vine, and I'm afraid it's got to go. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I'm feeling botanical today, but here we are.
Hey, look, I'll take it. Botanical theme seems great. I feel like I think there's a way we can maybe frame the entire conversation rather than being like, am I the Bolas for bringing this deck and taking a 45-minute turn? I think that there's something to the philosophy of like being a little bit more selective and decisive with your commander deck and your commander play. I think there's something to be said for that. I also think I took a long drive to Rochester, New York with my buddy Eric, and on the way there for Commander Sealed, we thought, you know what? Let's take a look at the ban list and see if we would unban any of these. And I'll tell you what, we were just 2 people, and it wasn't easy to come to a consensus.
You know, that's one of my favorite things to do when people are like, hey, you need to unban X, Y, or like, you need to unban cards. That's the first thing.
Right.
Not even the specific. You need to unban more cards. And I'm like, okay, here's the list. what do you want to take off? Right? And then they start looking down the list and they're
Yeah.
like, Sundering Titan? And that's when the conversation's over. I'm like, hang on, bro. Let's stop for a second. Think hard about that. But it's a lot of these things you run into where it's like when you look at each individual card on this ban list, it's really hard to come up with a good reason why that needs to be in Commander. And there, I mean, I'm not saying that every card on there is perfect and should never be moved. There are definitely cards that need to come off the ban list.
There have been a couple.
I mean, I'm sure you could get away. Well, I'm sure you could get away with getting rid of like the imprint mirror could probably get off, or like
maybe nowadays, yeah, maybe.
Or coalition victory could probably get off. I don't know.
Yeah.
People like to say biorhythm, but I still think biorhythm is a little.
Oh, I don't care for biorhythm.
I don't like that card. I don't think it would bring anything good to the. Like that's the other thing. It's like, okay, yeah, on power level, maybe this card wouldn't get banned today, but would bringing it back to the attention of everybody and making it unbanned so that they start playing it be good for Commander?
No.
I don't know. The card kind of sucks and is not fun to play.
We ended up talking about a few of the cards on here and being like, there's a reason that they're here.
Yeah.
The only one, you know, and even the one that feels like the most obvious to us as something that should be unbanned, and that was Lutri the Spell Chaser. And the reason for it being banned is because of Companion. And that makes sense. You don't want this in every deck. It's not even in the deck. It's in another zone.
Yeah,
it
it's
bypasses
just free.
the
Can you
rules.
Lutri
It's
in my
free.
Nira deck would be disgusting. Honestly, it would be actively disgusting.
It would just be 101st card just hanging out there in case you need it. With the updated Companion one.
When it enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell I control. Are you kidding? In my Nira deck, it would be the dumbest thing in the world.
But it's if you cast it, which you do have to get it from the Companion zone, so it's already 6
no.
mana. Yeah, okay. It's a 6 mana dual caster mage, basically, but dual caster's on ETB. Dual caster's in these colors. Like you just run dual caster mage.
It's a 6 mana dual caster that lives for free as an 8th card in your hand. And
There
that's where
you
the
go.
problem.
That's
like,
the problem.
It shouldn't. I am so mad that WotC decided like here's the thing about Lutri.
Companions.
Here's two things about Lutri that are just heinous and unforgivable. One is they chose a companion ability. Each online on the card has a different name in your starting deck. That could have been literally anything else. Anything else, right? Like it could have been like every deck in your starting, or like you need to have like all instants and sorceries in your starting deck or whatever. Anything, right?
Better.
Like any kind of other weirdo requirement. But having it be the free in Commander, which they clearly knew, and then B, making it the first order in Magic. If Lutri had been an ooze, do you think anybody would care? The answer is no.
I don't think so.
Absolutely.
No.
If Lutri had been a weird, like
that's what I was about to say.
or
We're
like
on
a
the same
Noggle,
page here.
nobody would give a crap
A
about Lutri.
Noggle. A Noggle. Oh my god.
Can you imagine?
You
Nobody
think we're
would
not
give-
getting a Noggle?
Nobody would give a crap about Lutri if it was like a ooze or a weird or some crap like that. But no, it's an otter, so now it's a problem. Come on, dude. That card,
It's silly. It's
it could
silly.
probably come off, but it's just such a...
What do people gain, really?
It would just... See, everybody would run it in CDH,
Sure.
and it would be
You know.
in every 4+ card deck for free. There's no value to bringing that back.
No.
Like Panoptic Mirror could probably come back because it's expensive and slow and doesn't really do a lot. But like, people come to me and I'm like, you really want to bring like Sway of the Stars back? What is that going to help
Why
you?
would you want that?
or like freaking like, you know,
Trade secrets.
Trade Secret or Prophet of Krufix? That's a fair and fun
That was-
card.
Prophet of Krufix, when I started playing EDH more seriously, I got the Derevi Precon in 2013, and I bought one of the first singles I bought for it was Prophet of Krufix, and I felt like such a brainiac getting that card. And I played it, and I thought, oh man, this is too easy.
You're right.
And this deck wasn't like optimized for anything. It was a deck where I was like, hey, let me get that guy that makes a 1/1 token when I tap him. You know, it was just like not an amazing deck, but I still was like, Prophet of Krufix just makes everything too simple, too easy.
But more than that, it says that you take twice as many turns as the table does. That's just bad for business. That's just bad for the play experience we want. It's already bad enough that like time warp type effects exist or whatever. or taking a 40-minute turn before anybody else gets to go. It's like, it just, these cards that just are bad experiences. I don't feel bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
But yeah, like you look at the list and you're like, oh yeah, Fast Bond. We're going to totally bring Fast Bond.
For sure. For sure. I think it must have been Sheldon who said that Prophet of Krufix was the most miserable when everybody was running it at the table and everybody had a copy.
And like prime time. Oh yeah, dude. You're just like,
Prime
everybody's
time.
taking every turn. What?
Oh, sure. Oh, great. That's when there's no order to the game, there's no game. You definitely have to prune these bonsai trees. That's
like,
for
look,
sure.
man, we look, and every time we have a meeting, we sit there and we're like, is there anything on the list that could come off? But this list is really, like, for the 30,000 or whatever cards are in Magic, this is a really tight list.
This is
really
tight.
There's a lot more cards that should be on it than are, but like,
Absolutely.
It's a really tight list. Like, it's very hard to make cuts off of this now.
It is super tight. Like I said, we were just two people in a car and we couldn't come to an agreement on which cards could come off.
Yeah, because I don't know. You look at Iona and people are like, oh yeah, Iona is totally fair. And I'm like, really? Is it really? Is it really? Grizzlebrand? Is Grizzlebrand really okay?
Grizzlebrand would be great. Please, can I have my 7 cards now, please?
Yeah, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, you could bring back Prime Time and Sundering and like Sylvan Primordial. They're just rampant. I'm like, bro, you already hate the rampant growth. You want to give them like a rampant growth on a stick every turn? Like, that seems idiotic. Like,
is it just? It's not even just rampant growth, isn't it? It's 2 lands.
Yeah, it's 2 lands. Or like Sylvan Primordial, destroy their stuff and ramp your stuff
and get it. Yeah,
and it's just like, this is a bad idea.
This was
but
only
it costs
meant
7
for
mana.
one-on-one.
I'm like, in green, that's turn 3.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I think Shivam, I think that brings us to the end of the episode, and I think you've left us with honestly some game altering stuff here, because like the don't make sure your deck doesn't
your deck should not be a judge call every turn.
Exactly, perfect, exactly. And then the bonsai tree analogy is really, really helpful for approaching the game. You're putting a lot of care and time into it, and eventually you'll figure it out. But you do have to make some decisions along the way that won't seem right, but probably are. So I really appreciate you coming on and having a chat with us, calling in. Would you mind telling everybody where they can follow you, where they can get into your work, your participation in the Magic content creation sphere, as it were?
Absolutely. So you can see me on Gearboy Gears on Twitter right now, or Shivam basically anywhere else. I'm not hard to find. I have a podcast called Casual Magic that comes out every Tuesday. I have a podcast called Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic that comes out twice a month. And I am very easy to get a hold of and very easy to talk to if you have any questions or concerns. And no, I will not ban your Soul Ring.
Well, okay, that's a promise, and you'll be kept to it. Thanks for being here, Shivam. Have a great one, and thanks again. I really appreciate coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that was exciting. We got a phone call from Shivam Bhatt of the Commander Advisory Group. Are you kidding me? Of Casual Magic, of Wheeler and Shivam Love Magic. Are you kidding me?
Morgan, do you even know people in the community?
Yeah, she kept calling him this guy. Are you just trying to make it a secret little surprise to try to downplay our guests?
It needs to be a surprise for you, Mark, because I don't want any like initial pretentious, like immediately the Bolas or not to come through. Like I need furry to the wolves when it comes to the guests. You can't know who it is.
No biases.
She's protecting you from your bias for a cool 3 minutes before you actually talk to the guy.
Honestly, you know, when I went to Harvard to do our case study on our voting system, they actually told me that one of the best ways to kind of prevent just fraud in science is to do things like that. Like, you can't know who it is. Like, because, you know, what if he thinks that he's already the Bolas? What if he thinks, they're not the Bolas? So I have to just say that there's a scientific reasoning behind it. It's not just my personal choice. Whether or not you agree with that, it's just science, dude. I don't.
Okay, so for future reference, if ever you are talking about somebody calling in and you're like, this guy, whatever, I don't know who this guy is, what you're really saying is we have a caller, and it could be somebody we don't know, but it also could be a very special guest that we didn't expect to be calling in right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, you mentioned a trip to Harvard. Morgan, let me ask you something. Are you talking about that trip to Harvard because you've been talking about how you need to go to Ivy League schools and discuss with celebrated scientists and mathematicians about our voting system?
That's right.
Okay.
Our very first case study, too, fitting to be published probably by the next episode. So
Unbelievable. Well, Morgan, take it away. Tell us about our voting system before we get to the question and determine whether or not Shivam Bhatt is the Bolas.
all right. So I know last episode we went kind of in a deeper dive, and this time we're going to kind of wrap it up a little bit quicker.
A little bit quicker.
If you have not
Okay.
listened to the last episode with Jimmy Wong, where we really just went all out to the wall with
For a while.
the science, the math, the chemistry, the
Yeah.
trigonometry, various metries in deciding how the voting system works, you can take some notes. Go check out the episode of Jimmy Wong.
Morgan, for every metry you add past the ones you've already said, I will give you $5.
What the hell are
Perfect.
metries?
Like trigonometry. Keep going. I want to see how far you could go.
Oh, I see. Okay, took me a sec. I forgot about that's okay. You know what? I don't know thinking. That's my bad. I'm not good at the think time.
Morgan,
One of my
Morgan.
best skills is being very good at not being good at knowing the think time in terms of we have metries, we have istries too. We have chemistry, trigonometry, geometry, codometry, podometry, monostropy, and periodontal. Those are our primary metrics for figuring out our voting system.
Basically, the voting system. How does it break down?
oh my God. I get 1 vote. Morgan gets 1 vote. You get 3. Let's move on.
Oh my god, you did it.
Is Mike killing the bit now? Is that what's happening? Is Solani saying it's over?
No. He just apparently he understands it and he never told anyone.
I know how banding works. I can add 1, 1, and 3.
But not everyone can.
I don't know how banding works at all, and I don't care. I don't want to learn it. Honestly, it would be so funny if in Modern Horizons 3 there is a creature that for 1 mana is just bands with other creatures. Doesn't matter. Perfect. Snaps from me, baby. Throw it in. Anyway, Shivam Bhatt, thank you for calling in. Now it's time to determine whether or not you're the Bolas. I get 3 points on my vote. Morgan and Michael get 1 point per vote. And now it's time. Morgan, please give us a question.
So Shivam wants to know, am I the Bolas for taking 40 minutes to durdle out on my turn and not win the game?
Michael Solani, you're on the clock.
Do I get 40 minutes?
No.
And you don't get any context either.
What? That's my entire thing. Without context, life is meaningless.
You killed Morgan's bit, and now you don't get to have a thing for the podcast.
No. Murders at Karlov Manor. Is that out yet?
No. It's out now, yeah. But hold on. So hold on a second. Michael, the context thing in this podcast is bull. Sorry, Ken. It is. It's bull. This is the podcast where we make a decision, we stick by it, and then the next episode, when somebody calls in with the exact same scenario and we say the opposite thing, we stick by that too. This is a podcast about vibes.
Well, what the hell am I supposed to say? You spend 40 minutes to do nothing?
Go on vibes.
Are you mad?
If I wanted to spend 40 minutes doing nothing, I would watch an episode of Sex in the City and then, like, depending on whether or not it's a 30-minute show or an hour show, I'd watch either a third of another one or 2/3 less. You get it?
Why'd you do that? Why'd you break down Sex in the City episodes like this?
You have a podcast about The Bachelor. I get to have a vice too.
It's not about The Bachelor anymore. It's about rom-coms, okay? We pivoted away.
You need to have an Owen Wilson week, but whatever. We need to talk about
Oh, yeah. We already did Wedding Crashers, though.
if 40 minutes is too long of a turn. The answer is clearly yes.
Yeah.
Like, I can't argue with it. You can't waste my time for 40 minutes and not buy me dinner or whatever the thing is. I don't know.
Wow, wait. Morgan, where you at? Is Shivam the Bolas?
Nope. No,
What?
absolutely not. You know why?
Even Shivam said he was the Bolas.
Kind of makes you wonder why he called in.
Exactly. So I have to be Shivam's advocate and say no. Let's dirtle. Let's dirtle around. Why else are we playing EDH? Do we want to win in 3 turns, or do we want to dirtle?
Some people want to win in 3 turns.
I don't want that.
Let's do it. Shivam's not the Bolas. Cast my vote.
Okay, fair. You got your vote in.
Exactly.
Yeah, people can vote wrong.
I do want games to last long enough for me to do dirtly stuff, but I don't want to be dirtling for 40 minutes and not accomplish something. Also, I'm going to be honest. Shivam, if you're listening to this episode, even if you've already been on the call, if you have footage of that game, because it was a stream game, please send it over. I would love to see the actual amount of time. Because when I was talking to him, I was like, hey, there's no way it was 40 minutes for real. There couldn't have been 40 minutes without somebody saying something. And 20 minutes, I can say, yeah, that's happened. I've had 20-minute turns and had to try to close out the game. And, I get there, but it's like 20 minutes of like doing so many different things. It's long. I get it. But to do all that, not win when it's like is it a solitary game, I'm going to respect Shivam's decision of calling himself the Bolas. And I'm going to say, yeah, buddy, you're the Bolas. I'm so sorry.
Self-report Bolas.
Yeah, self-report Bolas. And look, so Shivam, you did leave us with some great pearls, though. Your deck shouldn't be a judge call every turn. It's just beautiful.
I can't in good faith agree with that.
Yeah, but know your deck. You shouldn't need a judge if you could explain it.
Mike, I literally have 2 articles that say how to make the judge cry. Those are the names of the articles, okay?
That's a new series.
One deals with listens, and the other deals with the cleanup step. So I can't in good faith say that your deck should not be a judge call, because those are the most fun types of deck.
I'll interrupt you to say, as much as I know you love Licids, the cleanup step article was my favorite over the 2, even though the cleanup step one is so weird. You are such a monster. Do you know that? Your articles are insane. This is another plug for Michael's article series. How they brew it is such a sorry, Ken, such a mind of a read. It's incredible. I love your series. It's so funny. It's great. It's inventive and innovative. Anyway, I understand why you can't turn that into a podcast, because that you can only bend the game so many different ways before it's like, yeah, that's a 3-part series, rather than it's like an article once in like a month instead. Point is, I love your series, and your deck shouldn't be a judge call every turn unless you're Michael Solani, I guess. And also, that bonsai tree trimming stuff about deck building and the art commissions, I really like that. But I also really liked it when it came to talking about banning and unbanning cards. Now, are we going to talk about banning cards, unbanning cards? No. We've already talked with Shivam about how that's a pointless endeavor. Look, I don't want to do that. Who wants to do that? Not me. I've already done that with my buddy Eric. What I do want to do instead, Shivam brought up the fact that is his least favorite pairing of Magic colors, kind of deck style, and he decided, I'm going to build that. I'm curious what your least favorite deck styles are. Morgan, what deck colors and deck styles are you least pulled into God, I gotta be a better host.
Save it.
Fart.
You can save it.
Fart City.
I've got a couple email resumes already, so I mean it just kind of depends on how the rest of it plays out. But personally, in terms of deck colors and styles that I don't like, I'm really not a green girly. I really don't like anything Celestia. I don't like anything ramp. I don't like anything that is green life gain counter vigilance nonsense. Like, I'm an Esper girl. You know that my favorite, my King Aloro, the only thing that I ever want to play. I want to play life gain, but I also want to destroy stuff. I also want to take stuff. I want to counter stuff. I want to do all the good things that black and blue do. We're not just gaining life, and we're not doing counters, and we're not doing tokens for all of them to get withered away and languished and all this other not like, come on.
I love that you said we're not just gaining life and you're talking about Aloro.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Aloro can gain you the life, but he can do the things. He can do the blue and black things that anything Celestia can't. Or like Naya, because Naya is just Celestia that, like, is try hard.
Okay.
Right? With the red.
Damn. Okay. Solani, does any combination come to mind when you're asked this question here?
Look, I like to say that I have problems building Gruul decks, but then someone actually went through in my Discord and saw how many Gruul decks I'd actually built on how they brew it. And it was like a lot. Like I'd built maybe 5 or 6 Gruul decks, and I'm like, that can't possibly be correct. And it turns out it was.
Like Gruul?
Friends close, enemies closer.
It's extremely annoying because now I have to actually say Rakdos because that's the one I can't do anything
Oh my God,
with.
my favorite ones.
It's so straightforward. You play
No,
a
it's
thing and
not.
it dies. That's
It
all that
is-
happens.
Black and red is the worst dual color combination. There's just no way around
nobody
it.
come for me here. I don't think this is fair. No way. Rakdos, in the last year, we've gotten so many interesting Rakdos commanders already, and you're just talking about it like, oh, no.
Hold
no,
on, Mike.
no.
I didn't come in screaming when Morgan said that she didn't like Selesnya. Okay?
Yeah, well, that's because Selesnya sucks,
At least
dude.
Selesnya has interesting properties. You can do interesting things with Selesnya.
You can do interesting things with Rakdos. I don't know what you...
They're all the same. You always play a thing and it dies, or you reanimate a thing and it dies. They always die at the end. It's just like life. And I play a game to escape from that.
That's why he plays Selesnya.
Yeah, because communism doesn't work in the real world. Is that what you're saying, Morgan?
That's great.
Token
That's so
counters in Magic because reality doesn't work that way.
Mm.
In the last year, interesting commanders that we have gotten are Judith Carnage Connoisseur is going to count because I want to talk about Torwalkie the Younger, but I think that's from the year before. The Master Multiplied, the Beast Deathless Prince. We've got Rowan Scion of War. She doesn't count, but we got a reprint of Xantia Sleeper Agent. Sauron the Lidless Eye.
These names all sound like good cards or good names for bad cards. Every single one of them.
Look, Jason gave me that Xantia reprint as my Commander Masters preview card. I'm like,
Yeah.
Crap. I got to build a deck around Xantia. I came up with you make something into an artifact so you can enchant it with something that gets upset whenever an artifact activates its ability. That's what I came up with for Xantia.
Let's not even mention that Prosper is like one of the best commanders out there, period.
Prosper's a meme. Everyone's like, oh, that's good in Prosper. And that's the only...
You know
When's
why?
the last time you've seen a Prosper?
I play Prosper, you dig dong. I've got a fucking Prosper deck. Sorry, Ken. What do you think this is?
There's a lot of yelling and screaming for something that's from a Universes Beyond set, but maybe that's just me.
That's not Universes Beyond. That's like a legit.
It is a universe that is not magic.
You're right. It is a D&D set, but it's still not considered Universes Beyond. All right, whatever. Let me talk about the colors that I can't stand building around. Selesnya. Straight up Selesnya.
Oh!
I'm not even kidding. I don't
Uh-oh.
care.
That's math. That's math. Sorry, Solani.
You look Gabriel in the eye and tell me he sucks.
Buddy, I will rip up a copy of Gabriel Angel Fire right now if I could find one. I don't care for Selesnya. What are you going to do? Put counters on things and make people upset about it? Whatever. Who can? You've got a freaking guy that says at the end step, do stuff with counters again? Hey, did you gain life? There's counters involved. I'm not interested. And I'm also not interested very much in the combat step. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. I do have decks that have green and white in them. That's not, hard to come by. I've got 2 Abzan decks right now. I'm just as shocked as you are. But like, I have like a Bant deck that's also like an Enchantress deck. Like, of course, if I'm playing Enchantress, those 2 colors are going to be involved. But let me tell you something real quick right now. I could give less of a about Selesnya as a goddamn color pair when it comes to building a deck with just those 2 colors. You'd have to come up with something so weird and so interesting for me to even not just like sigh and shrug again. Whereas Rakdos commanders have been so cool and weird, I dare you to come for my guys again. My carnival sweethearts. My cowardly what's Judith's title again? She runs away from everything that happens in the last store, and she's not great.
Cinderella?
Yeah, she's a diva. But anyway, I don't care. Point is, Selesnya. How do you feel about that, Solani? I told whatever. You came for Rectus.
Did you even glunch, bro?
Oh, cool. Glunch. What's that? Counters, life gain, draw again?
No, it's treasures, counters, and draw.
Okay. I was wrong about the treasure part. I forgot that Magic is so silly and needs to have treasures on everything back then, even now. Anyway, yeah, I don't care about Selesnya. Yeah, what are you gonna do about it? Huh?
I can't do anything.
Anyway, this is taking too long, and I'm sorry.
I can't do anything.
Yeah, because you're playing green and white.
Selesnya can't interact. Actually, they can. They can interact with creatures pretty easily.
Face!
And other permanents.
Face! Morgan got you in the face!
All right, you can be over there sacrificing and existing at people while I'll be doing something interesting that requires thought, like swinging creatures at other players that might have blockers. They might have things on the board. I might have to do math. You know that?
Not creatures.
You think you've got math?
Not
One
creatures.
plus 3 is hard? Wait until you've got a rampaging Gabriel Angelfire.
Wait until I have a response and you just are silent.
Nailed it. Morgan going off this episode.
I'm sorry, asceticism. I'm sorry, Dawn Charm. I'm sorry, asceticism. There are so many ways. The one that gives privileged position.
I'm sorry, Zulaport Cutthroat and a million tokens with a Phyrexian altar.
You don't have to do anything. You just sit there and you just do the thing. You play. That's where the 40-minute solitaire turns come from, okay?
And you know what? Let me tell you something.
40 tokens, 40 thralls on the battlefield so that you can throw them away as well as the rest of the table. You just flip it. There's no point. Sacrificing is a cost.
You just have honor. You want it. You sacrifice your You want to feel that honor. You want to feel that your sacrifice was meaningful, and it's just not.
Tokens are dispensable. Anyway, I have a point to make. You said this is where the 40-minute turns come from, that you do nothing, you sit down and do nothing. Let me tell you something. We've been sitting down doing nothing for 40 minutes right now. How do you feel about that? Huh? Really makes you think. Anyway, you guys should follow us on Twitter and Instagram. This is the end of the episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you have something nice to say, please say it to us. Follow us at Am I The Bolcast on Twitter. Follow me at Mike Carosa. Check out my link tree. Check out my comedy. Follow Solani. Get his website, gamesfreaksa.info.
The letters essay, not the word.
The letters essay. That's right. And Morgan is Indigo Gentleman on Twitter. So please check out our stuff. Come see us in Chicago at the convention. Come see me perform in Chicago. I'll be doing comedy out there. I would love to meet people. I would love to meet people who listen to the podcast. I've been going out to an LGS out here in Montreal, and I ran into 2 players. We just sat down and played games all night. And then, I was like, hey, so what are you guys doing? I was like, well, I just started a podcast based on my column over at Commander's Herald. And they're like, that's you? We read that all the time. We're so excited about this podcast. So shout out to Steve and Sam. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being pals. Looking forward to playing more games this week. And I'm looking forward to meet more of you guys. I just did a pod with Mr. Bevers. This is dating the episode, where someone in the chat was like, I've been really enjoying the Bolcast. And let me tell you something. I really enjoy that you really enjoy the Bolcast. Thank you so much to everybody out there listening to the podcast and giving us very nice feedback. And if you have bad feedback, don't hurt me. Anyway, that's enough for everybody. Good night, everybody. Michael, Morgan, say bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.